Sean, welcome to our annual user conference webinar. It's a pleasure to host you today, and I would like to ask you a few questions. So first one, can you tell us a little bit about Vapor Point and your role in the organization?
Sure. Yeah, thank you for having me on. Vapor Point, we are a vapor control company. We're basically a service and rental company, both in the upstream, midstream, and downstream, primarily oil and gas services side. So a lot of rolling stock equipment out in the field, as well as services from personnel across various locations across the U.S., from California to Texas and to Louisiana. In my role, I am the Chief Operating Officer, so I'm basically responsible for all of our day-to-day execution and operations and back office tracking and monitoring systems that we have.
Perfect. Thank you. So the next question, what were the main challenges or issues that you've experienced before you started looking for a software like Rigor?
Yeah, so it was a long journey for Vapor Point, trying to find what we needed, and it was started from we needed just some sort of electronic tracking system for paperwork, and then it grew into, okay, we've got a lot more stock as far as depreciated assets out in the field, and how are we looking at that, and then into maintenance as we grew as a company. We're an 8-year-old company, so obviously we've kind of come through this transition, and the more we looked at different systems, some were way more complicated, some really were more integrated than we needed as far as wanting to drag in accounting and drag in CRM systems, but we really didn't need that at the time. And basically as we grew through this, we actually started, started looking at other systems and seeing where we're going, and we just struggled with trying to find something that was flexible for us, but then also able to kind of focus in on the key pieces of information that we're able to track and get some good business metrics back out of.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you. So again, you've had a journey of getting to the point when you were making a decision, and it can be a busy market to go and actually look for different systems. But since it's a journey, so you've had some experience with other software that you may have been using in your operations. So what were those software, and what were your experience or using other software systems? In other words, how advanced do you think you were at the time? Because some clients, when they come on board, they're only using the spreadsheet, some using paper only. So what was your experience before?
Yeah, it's kind of the same story that you've heard. I mean, it was spreadsheets to paper copies to how much could we pull out of QuickBooks, which really wasn't a lot, but how much could we lean on that system from an accounting system, and then trying to bring it back into our operations. And really our Vapor Point's journey was we really couldn't find a canned system out there for us, so we ended up pretty much trying to develop with third parties, just starting from scratch on building a database system. And we fell into that trap of we want this and this and this, and then we spent all of this time really starting from scratch trying to develop something that would give us all the stuff that we needed, versus kind of focusing on a couple of small things and could we have done something. So we actually went from a third party trying to develop something to really not getting anything out of that, and then bringing in some resources internal and trying to do something. And we still do operate like from a sales tracking system. We actually did develop something internally we're working off of now, but never really got to the point where we actually truly had an operating system, from an operations tracking per se system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So as I've just alluded in the beginning, so you've been using Rigor. We started the project about a year ago. So what your experience has been so far?
Our experience has been great. One thing that when we met with the River folks a year ago was, here's our want list, right? We're not sure we can get everything, but here's our want list, and here's where we're going with a lot of this. Rigor was small enough, yet flexible enough to really kind of give us the core pieces that we were looking for. I think that even the Rigor team will tell that Vapor Point definitely stretched what we were looking for at times, and I think that's been a good experience to date. To get the core core pieces in there as far as developing what we're trying to, send to the client, and then have some sort of electronic tracking of what we're doing in the field, maintaining maintenance, and maintaining some sort of electronic database of what we've been doing, which is really just kind of something simple. Seems simple, but really was complex from us to be able to actually get something that would work for us across all of our different service lines of different clients across the country.
Yeah, that's it's good. It's been a pleasure actually for us to have you as our client, because it's nothing kind of gives us joy as listening how we can help you to solve the problem. So that's and flexibility is one of the big things that we've always try to advance. So I think it's good to hear that you're doing that specific feature and the sort of differentiator of ours. Yeah. So we live in a real world anyway, so there's always something that we can do better. So what is it that you think from your experience that we as Rigger, as a team and as a project, can do better?
Yeah, because we've challenged this for so long, there's always things that you kind of look back and say, well, we could have focused on a little bit better here and seen that. For me, I think the training modules are good, but I think there was one little step as far as, how do I go from the initial implementation to what's the best way to bring on the different pieces of the team? And I know we had some different trainings and pieces, but I think looking back, I would have done things a little bit different on deployment. And I think that is just again, kind of, hindsight looking back as far as how do we get the most traction from the very beginning, which I think we did a pretty good job. But I think there was a few steps in there as far as that transition of deployment. And how do we done that a little bit different?
Okay, so I think that's a good it's a good insight, and I think it's a nice segue to the next question that I have. So, what would be your advice then, given that you've been through this for a number of months? You already have experience, and you are an experienced person now in implementing a system like this at your own pace. So, what would be your experience to some organization that are about to embark on implementation of a system like Rigger?
Yeah, I would say my best advice to another company that's looking at this is don't just put your toe in the water. Dive in, put together a dedicated team within your company that represents the different arms that are going to be a piece of this, whether that be maintenance, whether that be operations, whether that be your accounting piece is going to need to be in here, administration, safety. Have them on that initial team, because from what I learned on previously, we kind of lost that that momentum sometimes when we tried to do something that we would slow down, it wouldn't happen. So I think that one thing that I would definitely give advice on is have a dedicated team, set up target dates for implementation, set up for we're going to get this point at this point, and really to hit those milestones to where you can keep that momentum going. Because once you get it going, but you're fighting the change mentality. I don't want to change the way I've done it. You're fighting I don't like doing things on a computer. You're fighting you're going to hit some roadblocks. You're going to hit some challenges, and you need to make sure you have that implementation team. And also I would say that we're a good example of driving this from the top. Me in my position, I'm the cheerleader for Rigger within our company. And I think that's important to be able to, again, keep that ball rolling and getting buy-in from everybody and have a successful implementation.
Great. So one of the C's in your position stands probably for the cheerleader, because you're COO, so cheerleader operating officer.
Yeah.
One just to kind of to extend on your experience. So how did you find it? What kind of an insight you might gonna give as far as the change management? And it's just more again your advice. So how have you managed the change, and what do you think the biggest what is one or a couple of things that you can share, or an insight that you share with others? How do you manage change successfully so that it wouldn't get bogged down, it would go ahead and actually happen?
Yeah. I think the key piece to that is to show what advantages how does it benefit each employee and what they're doing? How does it help accounting? How does it help the salespeople to put together a proposal? How does it help the field technician to do that daily paperwork that he has to do, but is to find that benefit and show them that up front. Here's, if we get what we want to get, here's where the benefit's going to be for you. Here's where it's going to take a couple of tasks off your plate. Here's where, you know, you've done this before, so it's very simple to do it again, versus starting from scratch on a piece of paper. Here's the feedback that you're going to get as far as reporting. You know, those, to me, that is really, it's kind of put the cart before the horse sometimes, to say, here's where we're going to get, so help me get there. So I think that's the key factor, is showing that benefit up front.
Yeah, I guess just to sum it up, it's just more of outlining the tangible vision that people can relate to, I guess, right? So, and then
Yep.
just kind of keep selling into them day in and day out, and showing the results of it, just incrementally at least, right?
Yeah, exactly.